There was something oddly incomplete about the warning your soulmate nearly sent you today when they said, "I have to warn you. Something happened today. Open this right now." Your name was already typed by them. The first sentence was already written by them. When someone across the room said something that caused them to freeze, their thumb was lingering over the screen. Not recognition, not fear, not panic. The kind that occurs when a seemingly insignificant line unexpectedly makes connections between multiple elements you've been attempting to comprehend for weeks. Though they didn't hit send, your soulmate glanced down at the message once more and muttered, "I have to warn you before they misunderstand everything." Not quite yet. Because there was no big secret from the past involved in today's events. It was about an ongoing conversation. And for some reason, your name had taken center stage. The reason they hesitated is more significant than the warning itself, so hold on to this time. Your sweetheart entered a familiar location earlier today, anticipating a routine conversation. The floor was illuminated by sunlight. There was an unfinished drink on the table. Someone in the vicinity was casually discussing timing, relationships, and the peculiar way that individuals occasionally conceal the things that are most important to them. Then your name was mentioned. The look on your soulmate's face instantaneously transformed. Despite their best efforts to maintain composure, their eyes betrayed them. "Why do you look like you already know something?" someone remarked after seeing. There was a pause. Your soulmate folded their hands, leaned back, and listened intently while someone else reiterated what they had allegedly heard about you. Everything changed at that point. Because the person your soulmate had come to know did not fit the narrative being told. They discovered that preconceptions were subtly accumulating around you without anyone pausing to consider if those assumptions were valid when one detail turned out to be incorrect, followed by another. At last, your soulmate interfered. "That's not the whole tale, though." The room fell silent, and their following words revealed something they had never before publicly acknowledged. They stood up for you with the assurance of someone who had been paying attention when no one knew they were watching, rather than loudly or dramatically. They recalled the minor details. How you maintained your composure when you had the opportunity to react. The times you chose to back off rather than escalate a disagreement. The things you didn't publicize since they didn't require praise. Your partner had been discreetly gathering the larger picture while everyone else had been talking about pieces. However, you must pay attention to this point. Your soulmate became more aware of their own emotions as you were describing yourself to them. Their tone became softer. They started using personal language in their sentences. They began stating, "I know how they are," instead of, "I probably meant." The difference was noted right away by someone. You don't realize how much you care for this person. Your soulmate didn't respond. They just averted their gaze, but the stillness was plenty. They went outdoors by themselves a few minutes later. The door shut, and the sound behind them vanished. They took out their phone, opened your chat, and started to type. "I must caution you. I don't want anyone else to tell you about something that happened today." They realized there were actually two things they wanted to tell you, so they stopped, erased the last sentence, typed another, and erased that as well. The first concerned the words that had been spoken. The second concerned what they unintentionally disclosed while standing up for you. The second fact was far more intimate. The message hasn't been straightforward because your lover looked at your name for a few seconds before whispering, if I tell them everything, nothing between us stays the same. It's no longer just a warning. It has turned into an internal confession. And what they say next might ultimately clarify why today altered their perception of you. A second conversation had started behind that closed door, and the message nearly reached you twice before your soulmate erased it once more. They were unable to ignore what they heard this time. They were halfway out when someone called their name and said, "Before you go, there's something else you should know." Your soulmate turned slowly. The room, which had seemed normal minutes before, now seemed entirely different. No one was arguing or raising their voices, but every face had the uneasy expression of someone realizing they had formed an opinion too quickly. Then someone revealed where the story about you had really begun. It wasn't some huge secret, rather, it was something much more plausible, a misinterpreted exchange that went from person to person until the meaning had subtly changed. Your soulmate listened without interjecting, and then the detail that no one had anticipated. A few words had been taken out of context, and your soulmate realized exactly what they needed to warn you about, not because something horrible was about to happen, but rather because they wanted you ready before someone repeated an incomplete version of the story. The original conversation had never been about you in the way everyone assumed. Your soulmate didn't go back to the room right away, though. Instead, they stood in the hallway with their phones still in hand, repeating what they had said earlier while defending you. "I know how they are," those 5 words kept coming back. Why had they said no rather than think? Why had it felt so natural to protect your character? And why did it bother them so much that you might hear the wrong version? Then their phone lit up with another message from someone inside. "You should probably tell them how you really feel." Your soulmate realized they had spent so much time trying to keep their feelings to themselves that now others could see what they had been concealing from themselves. Your soulmate stared at those words, and a small smile appeared, then vanished beneath a much more thoughtful expression. This is where today became bigger than the misunderstanding itself. Your soulmate's next choice was to stop defending you from a distance and start writing something much more direct. So if this story resonates with you, feel free to share it, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you can follow what happens next. They typed, "I need you to hear this from me first," and this time they didn't erase it. Then another sentence appeared, "Someone misunderstood something about you today, but that isn't the part I'm worried about." Their fingers stopped, and there it was, the doorway into everything they had refrained from saying. Your soulmate peered through the glass at the people inside, and one of them nodded encouragingly. They went on, "What matters is what I realized when your name came up." However, before sending it, they recalled something else from earlier. Someone in that room had inquired about your future, specifically if you might be prepared to proceed without waiting for anyone who was unsure. Your soulmate had become utterly silent. Suddenly, the warning wasn't just for you, it was also a warning to themselves. Hesitancy has repercussions, silence can unintentionally appear as apathy, and if they kept keeping their feelings to themselves, you might come to feel that there was nothing left to wait for. Subtly, your soulmate stopped trying to craft the ideal message, stopped rewriting every sentence and worrying about how vulnerable they might sound, and instead typed exactly what they wanted to say while standing in front of you. "Today, I heard people talking about you, and I realized I couldn't keep quiet." They slid their thumb in the direction of send. "There's something else you need to know before you make your next decision, but I defended you because I care about you more deeply than I've admitted." They didn't instantly draw away this time. Once, they perused the message. However, when the truth finally sounded like the reality, their countenance softened. However, another notification flashed on the screen before they could send it. One unexpected query about you in a correspondence. The person who sent it knew something about today's talk that no one else in the room had mentioned, so your partner opened it, read the first sentence, and took a slow seat. What your soulmate was going to tell you was going to change because of that missing piece. There were just 9 words in the question displayed on the screen. Your partner, however, read it 3 times before responding. Has anyone told you what was stated first? Concentration stiffened their expression. They thought they had finally recreated the entire exchange up until that point. However, no one had brought up an earlier item. What do you mean? They promptly typed back. A few seconds later, they responded. It seems that someone had brought up a decision you were thought to be thinking about before your soulmate showed up, a change that might have an impact on who stayed near to you and who gradually became a part of your past. The potential alone had sparked the entire conversation, even though no one knew if the information was true. Suddenly, your partner realized why everyone had been inquiring about your future. Why did someone ask if you were ready to proceed without waiting, and why did they keep bringing up timing? It had never really been about passing judgment on you. There had been a single question that no one could respond to. Before your partner finally expressed their feelings to you, were you on the verge of making a different decision? Continue paying close attention to this, since your soulmate's next discovery transformed their warning into something far more illuminating. They went back to the room and posed a straightforward query. Who declared that they were moving on? No one responded right away. At last, a woman beside the window clarified that she had heard you were concentrating on yourself, becoming pickier about who you spent time with, and ceasing to pursue ambiguous relationships. That was all. People had taken your development as a definitive choice somewhere between that straightforward remark and the discussion taking place today. Your soul partner nearly laughed as they lowered their gaze. They finally realized how effortlessly silence had produced a tale that neither of you had written, not because it was amusing. You had never made a door-closing announcement. Your soulmate has never expressed their desire for things to be open. Everyone else had just guessed to fill the void between you. Then someone at the other end of the table said something that struck a different chord. Perhaps they are not the target of the warning. Perhaps it's for you. Don't assume they already know whether you care. Your soul partner didn't answer. They didn't have to. Their expression had altered. That day, for the first time, there was no hesitancy. They went outside once more, but they didn't conceal in the hallway this time. They made their way to the peaceful border of the parking lot, where the sounds from inside grew farther away as the afternoon sun bounced off of rows of windshields. They still had your discussion open on their phone. The incomplete message was still there, waiting. Another line was added by your soulmate. Your silence today was misinterpreted by some. I also realized that I might have misinterpreted it. I want you to know where I really stand before you make your next decision. Then they stopped editing. There was only honesty, no fancy words, no carefully crafted mystery. More crucially, they wanted you to know that they weren't prepared to treat it as a farewell, but they also wanted to caution you that people were taking your distance as a farewell. After hesitating for hours, their thumb eventually made contact with the screen. Sent. Their phone was left with the message. Your lover let out a breath as if they had been holding it all day as they gazed at the tiny affirmation beneath it. They still hadn't told you everything, though. They purposefully omitted one sentence from the message because they wanted to express it in a different way. Not via a screen, not via another person. In person if the chance arose. When the phone vibrated once more, your sweetie put it in their pocket and headed for their car. They came to a sudden stop. They appeared nearly terrified to stare for a little moment. They knew that whatever showed up on that screen could determine what would happen next, not because they had any negative expectations. They took out the phone. Your chat was lively. Your sweetheart waited in silence. Then their eyes became a little wider. This was no longer a tale about what other people had said today, whether it was your answer or just the potential for one. Neither of you had anticipated the outcome of the miscommunication. Your sweetheart has been compelled to come out of hiding. And now they were getting ready to reveal to you the one truth they had purposefully kept hidden. It had suddenly become hard for them to overlook the true reason they were losing their place in your life. Your sweetheart didn't get the simple response they had secretly hoped for from what was on the screen. And somehow, that strengthened their conviction about what had to be done. They watched your talk as the afternoon passed by, standing next to the car with the door still closed. People crossing the lot, distant cars, and a breeze raising their jacket's edge. Nothing else mattered for a few seconds. Then they turned to face the skyscraper again and realized something that was almost embarrassingly straightforward. They had been responding to what other people thought you were thinking all day. They had let uncertainty speak louder than either of you, quiet to foster assumptions, and guesses to foster haste. They didn't want to hear about your feelings from someone else. At last, they were prepared to give you the truth in exchange for what they wanted from you. So your sweetheart recorded a brief voicemail rather than emailing you another well-written paragraph. Before deleting it, their initial attempt lasted 7 seconds. The second sounded overly cautious. On the third, they said what they had been unable to type while closing their eyes. I'm not cautioning you because I want you to be concerned. I'm cautioning you because I learned today how much can be misinterpreted when two people fail to communicate crucial information. The sentence that they had purposefully omitted from the previous message then appeared. Their voice grew quieter, and I don't want you to think that I didn't value you. Your sweetheart didn't send it right away, but they stopped recording. Once they heard their own weakness, they had nowhere to run from it. At that moment, a person from the previous discussion came outside and saw them standing there. The guy inquired, "Did you finally tell them?" "Not everything." Your soulmate gave a small, almost disbelieving smile. The answer arrived right away. "Then why stop now?" Your sweetheart stared back at the phone. That question struck a deeper chord than anything else stated throughout the afternoon. They had been waiting for the ideal time for so long that they had forgotten how many ordinary moments had already gone by. If you're enjoying this unfolding story, you can share it with someone who enjoys emotional mysteries. If you want to stay in touch for what happens next, leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. This is because your soulmate finally hit the send button on that voicemail and made an unexpected decision right away. They typed, "When you're comfortable, may we talk? We want a true conversation without an audience, rumors, or speculating about the meaning of a delayed reply." They put the phone on the passenger seat and sat silently behind the wheel after saying, "There's something I should have told you myself a long time ago." For the first time throughout the day, they weren't practicing your potential reply. Instead, they were reflecting on their own actions. Every near confession, every instance in which they had wanted to reach out but persuaded themselves that tomorrow would be simpler, and every instance in which they had mistaken emotional caution for patience, today's miscommunication had revealed the consequences of that pattern. Your soulmate didn't know exactly what you would decide, and they respected that you had the final say. However, they finally realized that you needed accurate information before making a decision, and that their distance had never always equated to apathy but occasionally to uncertainty. The person who had first sent that 9-word question called your soulmate as they were starting the car. "There's something I left out," the voice said, and your soulmate instantly turned the engine back off. Sometimes pride, sometimes just not knowing if they were welcome to come closer. However, one last detail from today remained unexplained. The caller clarified that earlier, before anyone had started talking about your future, someone had asked an entirely different question: what would happen if those two actually spoke honestly? It seemed that almost everyone in the room realized the same thing, and the distance between you had never appeared to be a lack of emotion. Your soulmate leaned back against the seat, taking in what appeared to be two people waiting for clarification from one another. Then the caller added one last sentence that completely altered their expression: "Someone there knows why the misunderstanding started and they want to clear it up personally." Your soulmate turned back to the building. Your lover instantly recognized the figure who had just entered the doorway and was making their way toward the parking lot while holding a phone, realizing that this person was the only one who could truly explain what had happened today from the start.